Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by the 2019 Legends of Pittsburgh Cruise. Guest legends aboard, where you will find, well, you'll enjoy 4 days of interaction, and you're going to find many Pittsburgh legends, including Willie Parker, JuJu, Smith-Schuster, Max Stark, Santonio, Holmes, Rocky Bleier, Nate Washington, and many more. For booking information and other details, visit steelcityunderground.com/legendscruise. My name is Joe Kuzma, but this is really Terry Fletcher's ship because it is time for the WTF edition in the middle of the week. One of our flagship programs. I think that's what Terry would say. Is that right, Terry?
That is correct.
Oh, you're trying to be the cornerstone here. I see how it is. I'm going to let Trey know about that. Trey's trying to get up here on the turf, but all things are doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm actually on business. I'm actually coming to you today from Arizona.
You sound like you're in like a mausoleum or something. You were telling me these new hotel rooms. Yeah.
They're new. The DoubleTree suites are newly designed, and so instead of carpet, we have hardwood floors.
Yeah, it's not good for acoustics. Like everything's bouncing around. But then again, they're probably not imagining somebody having a drum set or something there. So
yeah, and I think the funnest thing right now is I'm looking at the TV and the replay of the Steeler games is on.
Yeah, that's no. We don't want that. We don't need to know about that.
No.
But you know what? I'll get your quick thoughts on it. With an asterisk. Apparently, we're not allowed to talk about the referees because then we're just crying about officiating, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the outcome of that game, as we all know, right?
Okay, so I know you and Brian already kind of ranted about this, but you know, the impact on this game, I agree with Brian and with you, but I don't like to cry about the refs because let's face it, in the second half, we did not play well. But when you have anywhere from a 14 to a 21-point swing due to refs, no calls or missed calls or bad calls, I mean, and the team has absolutely no recourse. The only time you even know if the crew or individuals within the crew are held accountable and what the punishment is if there's something that happens to leak where the NFL decides they want to create the illusion that they're tough on incompetent refs. And we've only seen that, once? And gosh, when I saw a ref got fired, I was like, you're kidding me. I think there should be a line judge suspension, if nothing else. To miss that where it ended up with a touchdown on I keep wanting to say San Diego, on the Chargers side, to miss that false start. I mean, how do you do that? And at the very end, those 3 offside calls, I mean, or I should say offsides. I just don't understand it. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't the only game where there was some questionable officiating, which is exactly what we were trying to get at when Brian and I were talking about this. And everyone wants to say, oh, it's spilled milk. And then they're going to still say, you know, I was just talking about this on the previous episode. You may not have had time to listen to it yet in traveling, but I said, I'm still upset about the Jesse James call. You think I'm going to get over this? Like,
oh, me too. I know.
In a few days. Yeah, but it's not the only thing. Did you hear about Jerry Hughes from the Buffalo Bills, who there was an altercation, a verbal altercation, I guess, in the tunnel with one of the referees who has now been put on. I
saw it on TV.
Yeah, they put him on leave. I guess this was the same official who had some words with one of the Redskins linemen. I wanted to say Trent Williamson, I believe was his name. He was one of I think he's a tackle with the Redskins, and there was a big to-do about that many years ago. And the referee was in trouble back then. And this was a close game with the Dolphins, a divisional game with the Buffalo Bills, 21-17. And I guess there was something said afterward. And, you know, I've been in this position myself as a referee. You know, you want to say something. Trust me, it's just human emotion. But you have to know not to say anything because, I mean, you're held to such a standard. Now, if a coach or somebody says something, a player says something, they're going to give a fine. But if you're a referee, you know, your job's on the line because you have to have that impartial, at least that air of being impartial and unbiased. And if you say something to a player and it's something that's ignorant, you're going to get yourself in hot water.
Yeah, I just think that though that to me, I would almost lighten my wallet a little bit just because whenever a coach does say something and they know they're going to be fined and the media picks it up, they replay it over and over on a continuous loop, and so it's out there. And I think it needs to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, that is anything if it gets out in the media, which would be another WTF from over the weekend with Kareem Hunt. But I didn't want to exactly jump over the other officiating thing that happened too. We had touched upon this just briefly, just because I made mention of it, because I said if this was the Steelers, I would have been livid, and this was the Colts and Jaguars game. Yet another divisional
At the very
matchup.
very last seconds of the game, I went back and watched it because I didn't see it live, and I was like, oh my gosh, that ref just made a judgment call to end the game.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Well, just to explain, if our listeners hadn't seen it and you didn't hear it from the previous show, I didn't go into real in-depth details, but the Jaguars were only up 6-0. You got Andrew Luck and the Colts on the road at Jacksonville, and they're trying to put together some type of last-ditch effort to score, because obviously if they get a touchdown, they tie, and then an extra point would be, with Adam Vinatieri, no less, one of the greatest ever, even though he's like, what's his official age now, like 84?
Something like that, yes.
He's been playing since they had the leather helmets without the face masks. And, all-time NFL leading scorer, if I'm correct here, in the history of the league. So, it's not too far-fetched that if they get in a position that they might have a chance to, do something with Andrew Luck and all these, T.Y. Hilton and a few of the receivers that they have. I'm not going to say that they're like, Super Bowl contenders, but, it's a divisional game. Anything can happen in these games. And Luck throws it's just a little out pattern where his tight end, Swopes, I believe that's who it was. He gets hit by Jalen Ramsey, but Swopes takes like a step and then a second step, and he's turning his body, and he's clearly trying to go out of bounds, because guess what? The clock stops when you go out of bounds. And there would have been 5 seconds left on the clock. He clearly, by the replay, lands out of bounds on his posterior, but the official in the game, I guess this is something that can happen. Jalen Ramsey comes in like a missile, probably, head first, shoulder first, whatever. He flies in. He probably hits Swope somewhere in like the thigh pads, right? And Swopes doesn't necessarily go forward, but he's not trying to go forward. He's trying to go out of bounds. He's trying to go to the side. And it wasn't necessarily clear like, Swopes hit a wall, was moved backwards or anything like that when you have a forward progress with a running back, or like they try and do with they don't want the quarterbacks to get killed out there with the sacks now, so they stand them up, okay, below the play dead. Well, this referee decides that, Swopes was hit. That's in the field. It's in the field of play. His forward momentum is stopped, and we're just going to wind the clock now, and that's game over because Colts don't have any timeouts, and that ended the game. And it's a judgment call, according to one of the talking heads, one of the former referees, that now they won't throw their fellow friends that they used to work with under the bus by any means, and they'll try and explain things fairly, which I think it was explained fairly, but the whole act of it being a judgment call was complete BS, if you ask me. And I was just speaking the previous night with one of my friends that's a Colts fan, and he was shaking his head because we were talking about our game as well, and just the officiating on both of those games is just that was such a bad way to end a game. You let the players finish the game. You making that a judgment call, I don't think Jalen Ramsey would have popped up and knew that the clock would have wound up or anything like that with the way Swopes fell out of bounds. If that's the way you saw it, I just think that that was kind of a shady way to end, and they gave the game to the Jaguars. The home team at least got a call in their favor. If you're going to say someone's
I thought it was really. I just thought it was just so. I mean, I don't even know what to call it. It was. I mean, our game was just all the way through poor officiating, and just to see that and. Again, I'm reliving here right now that touchdown on that where they didn't call that false start. But the officiating. The one thing that bothered me this season was that I don't know if you saw the report about Thanksgiving Day. They said, the Thanksgiving game's got the all-star crew, and to me. You don't just do that on Thanksgiving or the holiday.
That was the Rams. That was the Rams and Chiefs game on the previous Monday night where they announced that, and it was like.
So Sunday night doesn't get a good crew either. I mean, I just don't get when you have one game, and you're one of the two of the hottest teams now. both first in their division, or at least trying to be. Well, I mean, the San Diego, or I'm sorry, the Chargers are kind of dealing with the Chiefs, so that's unfortunate for them. But I mean, still, they're doing well. Phillip Rivers is having a season, and you put the Steelers and how long had it been since the Chargers have been on Sunday Night Football? 4 years, and you don't have an all-star crew, as they say. I mean, we had like the D crew.
Well,
It was awful.
Well, it was very bad, and I didn't have a problem previously with Bill Vinovich. I didn't previously have a problem with several other referees. There were some in the past, like Clete Blakeman, that had done Ravens and Steelers games and put in a very tough position, and then had to do the game again in the same season, or after having a rough game with, like, the Bengals or Steelers or divisional games where they have a history with the team. Well, there was no history here of Bill Vinovich. He hadn't done a Steelers game all year. And they have Ron Torbert this upcoming weekend in Oakland. And, I don't have any history with Ron Torbert that I can remember either. There's guys like when you get like Ed Hockley or Pete Morelli and you're like, oh, geez, here we go. You know what I mean?
But I think the thing, Joe, that really is bothering me is the thing that did you see that post where after our game, a Browns player came out and
Joe
said
Schobert.
he's a special teams player. Yeah. And he said, okay, so the Chargers long snapper, he's been notorious for twitching and moving his, forever. And he said something to the referees, and they said, oh, he's been doing that his whole career, so that's not going to be called. To me, I mean, WTF, that's BS. I mean, so you're doing something that is illegal your whole career. Nobody's corrected it, so they're going to allow it. It reminds me of Pete Carroll, who's always on the field. He's never behind that white line.
There's so many guys like that. I think Tomlin, after he got in trouble on the Thanksgiving game with Jacoby Jones, stopped doing that. He used to be on the field a lot. Who was notorious for that was Jim Harbaugh when he was with the 49ers.
Yeah, he was.
The guy lived out there. He may as well pitched a tent.
So does Pete Carroll. I mean, he just sits there.
Yeah.
And he's always in there just yelling at every single play. I mean, he's worse than some of the wide receivers who want a flag every single time. But just looking at some of this stuff, it's just sad to me.
Hold on one second. I want to go back to the All-Star crew thing because the statement made, and I do believe this was mentioned by one of the announcers or something like that, to the effect of, what does that say? For example, when Pete Morelli was reprimanded several years ago, they went and they put him on, was it a Browns game? It may have been one of the Steelers games with the Browns or something like that. It was a team or two teams that weren't doing well. They didn't have good records. What kind of message does that send to those two teams? Oh, we'll remove your referee crew and you put this referee crew here too. Now, I work in a sport where you have men's and women's, or boys and girls if you go even into the high school level. And if you move a referee and put a certain referee on a girls' game, you're sending a message to the girls' teams or coaches, fans, and everything like that, you don't get good referees because you're just girls. And it's kind of like the same message it is here, saying you suck as a pro football team, so we're going to give you the sucky ref because we just don't have they don't have enough bodies to put on some of these games or move these people around.
Joe, the thing also that came out too is that I don't know if it was Michelle Tafoya, but whoever was our the gal that's on the field after halftime, she asked Mike Tomlin, what did they tell you about that one play where they got to get a free, basically a free touchdown? And they said, oh, the refs told them they screwed up, but what can you do?
He said in his post game,
this is costing people's jobs.
It can cost a head coach a job, players jobs, because new head coaches and GMs come in. I mean, there's money on the line in every single one of these games. Don't make any mistake about it, especially with Vegas. And I had made someone that's in the YouTube comments is going to love this if they hear this, because I was talking about tinfoil hats, which leads to conspiracies. And I was saying it's like, hey, they wanted the Los Angeles market in prime time. They want that. They're forcing that LA market. They want it to succeed because it's, the second largest city in the United States, or maybe, well, I can't say North America. You still got Mexico City, I believe, maybe larger, but it's up there. It's in the top 5 if you count even the Canadian cities like Toronto or something like that. New York City, a big obviously, market. Yeah. Huge TV market, Hollywood, everything like that. They want it to succeed, and I feel that I'm not going to say the referees were making calls because of that, but they may have been put in a situation. I don't know what was going on. If they just didn't get enough sleep, if these guys travel from the West Coast too. I mean, they're coming from all over the country, but it was just inexcusable.
I mean, even JuJu's first down. I mean, JuJu's first down, Mark. We're like, wait, what the heck?
I know.
So it just got to be just absolutely ridiculous. But let's move on from the rest and talk about some of the WTF happenings. And since you brought up Kareem Hunt, let's start there.
Well,
do we have to?
What?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is video. I mean, it's like the Ray Rice saga, because you saw Washington picked up, a player who apparently, Reuben Foster, who didn't have a video, and I think he was actually convicted.
No. Here's the deal with Reuben Foster. He was found innocent, and this is the same accuser. And so since it's the same accuser now, there's maybe some doubt, but I don't know. The 49ers obviously let him go, so they must be.
Actually, I thought there was a charge or something.
Oh yeah, he was charged before. This was what dropped. This is what dropped him in the draft, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Steelers need to draft him," and then the 49ers looked like geniuses, and then up until now, because now that he's no longer on the roster, and a lot of people are criticizing the Redskins because obviously domestic violence is nothing to joke around about. However, and like you said, there's no video, and there's also the doubt because it was the wrongful accuser from the first time around. So I think that's what gave the Redskins some. They made, I don't know how much homework you could do in that short period of time between, hey, let's claim this guy or not. And in the Kareem Hunt circumstance, like you said with Ray Rice, there's a video. Here's the strange thing that I don't get. This incident happened when, like,
February.
Beginning of the year, February, right?
February. Yeah. But see, this is what they came out.
It took so long.
They said that they knew about it. They had talked to him. He apparently, because I was listening to this actually in the car in NFL, and they had one of the actual not beat writers, but one of the Chiefs writers that was actually in the room when he was taken out and told to leave. He basically said he was asked about it. He said he never left his hotel room. He was never in the lobby. He basically lied about the whole incident. I mean, from the time, for everything, not just what he did or didn't do as far as the violence part, but the fact that he was saying he wasn't even part of it. And we only know what was actually on the cell phone video. We don't even know because it was edited. You could tell, but what wasn't, and people had to restrain him back. If they didn't have to restrain him, what would happen? But the thing that they came out with, which they're like, the one thing the guy said was, they just didn't want a liar in the locker room. I'm like, okay, or somebody who beats women. I mean, let's just say it. I mean, okay, so you don't want liars, but okay, this is just silly for you guys to say we're dropping him because he lied. I mean, well, that's not going to get you anywhere.
There's still details we don't know because ESPN, they had an exclusive interview. Oh my goodness, was it Lisa Salters? Maybe I'm trying to think who interviewed him on Sunday morning.
She did. Yes, she
did. In that interview, in a lot of the instances, it was like I don't know or I don't remember. And I'm trying to think who the other analyst is that was sitting on that panel. In fact, all of them were pretty much of the opinion of, what do you mean you don't know? Like, either come clean with it or not, because this isn't helping your cause. So, but he is suspended indefinitely, and we fielded some questions on social media, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And people are asking now that James Conner's hurt, which is a WTF all of its own too.
Yes.
They're like, well, what about taking a chance on him? He's suspended. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with him other than give yourself some bad press because of everything that's surrounding this?
Take a cap hit. You still have to pay him.
Yeah, you're not going to sign somebody that's suspended indefinitely. I mean, it's
exactly.
Why?
Well, the Steelers wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole anyway. But going back to as far as to Washington on a WTF, I think it's creepy there if you're a quarterback with the broken legs.
Yes.
I'm like, there's a Theismann curse. I mean, first it was Alex Smith. Well, first it was him, but Alex Smith. And that was on the same day to like 20 years later. And then now
as Joe Theismann. Yeah.
Yeah. And now Colt McCoy. And now it's Mark Sanchez is coming in. But as soon as he went in, actually, I started laughing because I was like, I'm not a fan of his. Back in the Jets Tebow days, I think he was kind of a jerk to him. But I was laughing going, you know what? He's actually probably one of the better backups that's out there. But what was just interesting to me is I have Adrian Peterson on my fantasy league, and I needed 18 points. He got me 17.97. I don't like him.
Ooh, the decimal
I don't
system.
like him.
The decimal system.
I don't like him.
Oh, he just, it was just funny because I was thinking of you the whole time watching the Monday night game. I'm like, Terry is going to be talking up Mark Sanchez, Mr. Butt Fumble.
I can't. Oh, they actually said, you hear Witten?
Yeah.
He said, as long as he doesn't butt fumble. I was like, oh, he called him out.
No one is going to forget that. But did you see?
Ever.
Did you see? They may be upgrading the quarterback rankings there. Landry Jones has a tryout there, so he may be able to. All boats rise with the tide. No, he's probably put in a. If he ends up on the field, he is going to be in a terrible position. No way he's going to learn a playbook that fast, and it's going to be so vanilla because you even had Booger McFarland talking about. How many plays does Mark Sanchez know? He's been with the team, how many days or a little over a week. Okay, maybe you learned 15 and now he might be up to 25 or 30. And it's he knows the terminology and has been around, has familiarity with some of those coaches. Landry's only had familiarity with like Todd Haley.
At this point, what do they do with those players? Go throw it to somebody in red and hand it off to this number. Seriously, that's kind of their playbook at this point.
It's called, here you go, good luck. So
yeah, exactly.
Let's draw something up
they
in
brought
the
the whole Kaepernick thing out there too, and
of course
they were very nice and said they considered him, but at this point, that's just not where they're at. He hasn't been in the league for year and a half, so they're looking at somebody who's played recently, so that made sense.
Well, again, we're gonna bring this up one more time. He has a lawsuit against the NFL, so it's kind of a conflict of interest there. Just
a little conflict.
Yeah.
And so I have a question for you, and maybe you know this.
Put me on the spot.
Maybe you don't. Well, the Rams clinched, so they are in for the playoffs because they played a really bad Detroit team. Why would anybody pay Matthew Stafford what they did when he hasn't done anything and he truly is terrible? I don't get that.
Because Matthew Stafford is better than Butt Fumble. There's not enough. There's not enough bodies to go around in the NFL. And when somebody gets hurt, it's even worse. But you take a look at there's injuries just about everywhere. It's tough for me to look at this and just go, okay, well let's pick on somebody. San Francisco's lost 2 quarterbacks this year,
right.
So as we were just talking about the Redskins, the Bears right now are rolling with Chase Daniel. You have, I'm looking around here at some of these. Cincinnati, Andy Dalton's out now.
Right.
You have, let me see.
Or a thumb. Just saying.
Well, Jacksonville's still rolling with Blake Bortles, but
he's on the bench.
Here and there. Buffalo. They drafted the which kid was it now? I get the two confused between Allen and Rosen. They have Allen, right?
They have
Josh
yes,
Allen, but they were without him for a period. They had
a while.
Yeah, they had to pull Derek Anderson out of the quarterback graveyard. Yeah, Josh Allen. Like I said, Trubisky was already down. Tampa Bay can never decide if it's Jameis Winston or Fitzmagic. I know you love that one. And the Jets, they have to roll with Josh McCown because Sam Darnold is hurt too. And what else is going on here? I think that's everybody. We got Mullins in San Francisco. And Philadelphia got Carson Wentz back, but then they had Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles, your guy.
I wonder if anybody's calling for him.
Somebody has to be calling. I said
somebody has to be calling for him.
I said, what would be the irony of the Redskins calling the Ravens for RG3 at this point? Because he's like the third guy on the roster.
Oh, right. Well, we have a third one too. I'm surprised nobody's called us for something.
I don't know that the Steelers would be willing to deal Josh Dobbs or Mason Rudolph, or I joke around and call him Randolph because everyone's saying his name wrong. But you got Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and they've been streaking now, even though Lamar Jackson doesn't throw for a whole lot of yards or does much else than run 17 times with the ball for 75 yards and a touchdown. And the Atlanta Falcons, they can't get anything done there. They are now 4-8, and it's absolutely atrocious there. And the Ravens have snuck back into the postseason hunt in the AFC North.
They have, and which is frightening because we have to beat the Raiders, but we're going to have to win one of our next games that people don't expect us to win. We're going to have to either beat the Patriots or the Saints, and I don't see. I'm not jinxing anything, but I don't see us losing for Cincinnati. But I would really like to see us win 3 out of 4 at the very least. I mean, I'd like us to win out. But I just hope we don't do something that we'll regret with the Raiders, because that would be a WTF for me, to the point where I'd be like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, and I mean,
so
you look at what the Ravens have done with Lamar Jackson. They went on a bye week. They beat the Bengals, who are, down and out. They beat the Raiders, who, aren't very good. They put up 34 points. I mean, some of that with aid of their defense, and then the Falcons don't have a defense either, so they beat them. But I mean, it's not like Lamar Jackson's lighting up the world. 59.7 completion percentage.
No, but his rushing is what's lighting it up.
It's 2 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. It's like that's exactly what it is. And they haven't had anybody that can run the ball. And now they have a guy. Here's the WTF, Terry. I don't know if you brought this up previously or not. I can't remember. But why are we calling this guy, this rookie running back, Gus the Bus Edwards? There's only one bus out there.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's Jerome Bettis. So
that's very true.
Yeah. How about the Thursday night game? Did anyone see the Saints losing in that game to the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, that was kind of crazy too.
But did you see that Jerry Jones? Oh, that was our Super Bowl. I'm like, good. Then take the bench. Take a seat. If that was your Super Bowl, take a seat. But I can't believe that they've actually won 4 straight games.
I know.
I mean, I was WTFing that all the way. But Drew Brees looked old. He has not looked that bad in a long time. And they just opened up and exposed. If you really get the pass rush after him, because he's such a pass-heavy quarterback, even though they've got some things going on there. Ingram was not a factor in that one. It's crazy that he looked really terrible. So I was definitely WTFing that. But I think the biggest WTF for me when I heard about it, I was like, Mike McCarthy was fired? I couldn't
almost
believe it.
Instantly. Now I was talking to you about
what?
I was talking about watching the end of these 1:00 games. We got down to the tailgate lots early for the Sunday Night Football, the tailgate for the Steelers game, and bring a TV, pop it up. I got some Red Zone going like on my phone because we're watching stuff. Of course, we all have fantasy teams, me and my cousin, and then my other cousin and his wife that showed up too. So we have all these things going on, and we're like, are you kidding me? Did we just see that? Arizona wins 20-17 over Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay. I'm like, that guy's getting fired. And I didn't think it was going to happen. Like, he didn't even leave the stadium. They were just like, wait a minute. Where are you going? Don't go out to the parking lot. You forgot a box of your things. Go collect your things and get out of here. I mean, it was within an hour or so. Did he even get a press conference finished? It's like, have a press conference now, have another one because you're out of here. That's wild.
Well, and Aaron Rodgers says he heard when his phone blew up on social media. He wasn't even told. Which I was like, wow. And even Tony Dungy, he's like, you just don't do that to a Super Bowl winning coach that took you to the playoffs how many times? And he goes, wait till the end of the season. And of course, the guy that Rodney Harrison that is with him, he goes, oh no, it's time. I just want to put duct tape on that guy. he's my WTF.
He's always been a talker, though.
I just like, just shut up. But I just was really surprised. To me, that was so disrespectful. That's right up there with me for, McAdoo benching Eli. I just think that there's certain people you afford courtesies to, and to me, that's one coach that you do. I mean, you just don't do that. To me, that's almost like, firing Tomlin midseason.
Oh, a lot of people would love that. It's more on par with firing Bill Cowher because, McCarthy's been doing this about almost as long. So he started in 2007. He went to 13-3, made the playoffs. Then he went 6-10, missed the playoffs. Then the Packers make the playoffs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight years before missing out last year. And part of the main reason they missed out was because, Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone and they had Brett Hundley as their quarterback. And they still ended up with a 7-9 record, but 4-7-1 as it stands right now. And, I mean, they canned them. I guess it was just enough that they lost to an Arizona Cardinals team that could be among the worst in the NFL, entering the game at Lambeau at 2-9, now 3-9 record on count of the victory, and just everything that happened. I mean, the other thing is, they have their kicker, Mason Crosby, misses a 49-yard field goal. So the kicking is, Brian and I discussed this, how there might not be 32 good kickers in the league. You got stuff like that happening where Mason Crosby had missed one earlier in the year as well that cost Green Bay a game. So it's just it's a constant grind. And as you said, it doesn't take much for some of these people to lose their jobs. There's a lot of money and a lot of things on the line.
When I hear the yinsers, as you guys call them, I don't think I fall in that category since I'm in California. But I think that
West Coast yinser.
Oh, okay. When they see a bad game and they immediately call for somebody's job, the thing that people have to not be so trigger finger about is, okay, so that's what you want to happen? Who are you going to get? And they got nothing.
Well, that's exactly what I said about the Oakland Raiders. They go out and they get a Super Bowl winning coach because they absolutely had to have him. It wasn't like Jack Del Rio was doing a bad job. He had led them to the promised land.
I loved him. I was so bummed when they let him go.
Yeah, the same. I like him. I thought he was doing a solid job in turning that program around. And now, they give a big contract to Derek Carr. He had gotten injured. That kind of played into their postseason hopes last year. And now all of a sudden, let's ship off Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was not doing too hot. Seems to be doing fine in Dallas. Get rid of Khalil Mack, who is like a generational player, and he's just tearing it up with the Chicago Bears. And it's like, well, we have all these draft picks. Well, you only have only 2 wins or whatever, Your team is doing what are you doing with the team? And, thank you, Chucky, at least for giving us Ryan Switzer and taking Martavis Bryant. I'm not too upset with that. But you've lost 10 games this year so far. They are the polar opposite of the Chiefs, are 10-2. The Raiders are 2-10. The Steelers, obviously we worry about them going on the road, playing down what we would call inferior teams, but the LA Chargers are not an inferior team, and we see now too that the Denver Broncos are right back in this hunt as well. They've been surging, making a surge here, and some of the teams they had lost to, like the Rams and so forth, the Chiefs, those aren't teams to take lightly either. Now they're a 500 ball club, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, the Steelers really do have a hard schedule this year, but it's like, hey, let's fire somebody. Everybody always has to be a scapegoat. Let's fire somebody in the middle of the season. For the last 2 years, it's been Todd Haley. Todd Haley's gone. Now who do you want to fire? There are people out there that are actually calling for the benching of Ben Roethlisberger.
They're just they don't get it. He's having a career. I am not happy with his 12 interceptions. He isn't either. And I think his ball protection is pretty bad this year, and some of his decisions where he's throwing it. But I just looked at I'm obviously, because that game's on, I can see what happened. He got hit as he lofted that one for the interception. Now I know those are sometimes considered, excuses, but all I'm saying is that most quarterbacks that are getting these higher numbers on interceptions, except if you are a Mark Sanchez or even Phillip Rivers, he was always big on interceptions. And Tony Romo, he was the interception king. But sometimes they get called for an interception when they throw the ball and it just doesn't touch the ground and it bounces off people. And all of a sudden somebody else from the other team gets it. That's on the quarterback. And it's like, wait, I didn't even have anything to do with that, So it just sometimes I think it's unfortunate. I think probably 8 of those are definitely on Ben, but there's probably 3 or 4 in there that I probably wouldn't have been on him. But I think to wrap this up, my last WTF is about Ryan Switzer. Boy, that boy is getting clobbered out there. He actually liked one of my tweets because about a week ago he was complaining about his tonsils hurting and wanting them out. And I'm like, well, Ryan, they don't take out tonsils anymore because they think you actually need them. I said, so I go, but then when he got really hit this weekend, I said, so I guess you're not thinking about your tonsils anymore too soon. And he liked it and actually sent me some emojis on laughing. So I was just like, just saying, when your head hurts, you really don't think about your tonsils.
Yeah, you know what? Funny story. I still have mine. I'm 37 and I still have mine. They were never taken.
They don't take them out anymore.
Never taken out. Hey, jumping back to Ben, just real quick. It is 13 total interceptions with 6 of them in the last 3 games. So that's
okay.
That's
there's a WTF. That's a WTF. And there's no question. Well, and the last 3 games. I mean, we were like we beat the Jaguars on that game. I mean, it was an epic game because of how we absolutely came back at the end. But these last 2 games, Joe. These last 2 games had WTF written all over them. I had to delete them. They're painful. I can't, because I watch games over and over.
Yeah, I'm aware. You keep them
on. I love watching them at night. I can't watch them.
You keep them on the DVR. I have 2 more quick shots for you here. Was the Giants beating the Bears in OT? And I don't know if you saw how that got set up, but Odell Beckham was on that onside kick crew. It was like, why are you touching the ball? Field the ball. What are you doing? You probably have the best hands in the NFL, and he totally botched it. And
he's throwing touchdowns now, which is really funny.
Yeah, so is Chris Boswell sometimes. So
that's true. That's true.
And then my final one was: did you happen to see Adam Thielen's, the wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, who are matched up with the New England Patriots? Bill Belichick throws a challenge flag on one of Thielen's receptions.
Oh, and he goes after the coach. Yeah,
I thought he was going to pick up the flag and throw it at Belichick. It was one of the most awesome things I ever saw, and it's know.
And Belichick said something to him. Like, I was trying to lip read it, like, simmer down there, dude. Or so it was just really old school funny. And it was just because, nobody goes after Belichick. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
It really was. He's like, almost like kind of in the upper echelon, maybe NFL royalty, untouchable. Don't talk bad about him. Don't say anything about him. And he like flipped out like, how dare you challenge whether I caught that ball or not? That was pretty amazing.
And for those of you out there that are listening and tune in each week to our WTF, just so you know, we find things that I think the ESPN crew on the Come On Man are doing a terrible job. So you need to listen to us and tell everybody to come listen to our WTFs because we're better than the Come On Mans on ESPN Monday Night Football.
Ooh, that's a hot take right there. And it really is. It really is a hot take. But I like it. I do like it. So, yeah. Well, Terry, it's good catching up with you again. It's also good. I've been MIA on a few of these podcasts as well. It took me about 2 weeks to completely get over the whole strep throat thing. I had like zero voice and zero energy. So it's good to knock a few of these out with you Brian, and company. And we're gonna try and get some of the other guys in the mix here, like Noah and the one we call the professor that we're not allowed to call the professor apparently, but Zach. Nice. We're gonna get everybody in the mix here. Maybe we'll do we should do a Steel City Underground podcast Christmas party. That could get real interesting real quick, I think, if there's some spiked eggnog involved. But
that would be awesome.
But you enjoy your warm weather, whether you're in California or Arizona or wherever. It's a lot warmer than
we're freezing at 60, but thank you.
Freezing at 60. I had to take my coat off at Heinz Field because it was 60 at night for the Sunday night football game. I felt like I could wear shorts out there. It was ridiculously unseasonably warm. So
that's funny.
That's what we would say up here. But once again, folks, that's Terry Fletcher, my better half here on the WTF edition of the podcast. Looking forward to your comments. Go ahead and drop them right in there wherever you are listening, or, shoot us an email. We have fanmail at steelcityunderground.com. We have the contact page over on the website as well as the hotline. You'll see that in the show notes, all the good stuff there. Until next time, her name is Terry. My name is Joe. I encourage everyone to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.